Welcome to the Motorhome Matt podcast. I'm Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
And we're here every week in audio and in vision to give you the very best of advice, whether you've got a motorhome, a caravan, or you just like camping out.
Indeed. Well, we try, don't we?
We do try, and to some measure we have been successful with record downloads, and thank you very much. And of course we are award winners as well.
We are double award winning now. We've got 2 trophies. One's on the way, Keith. I'm going to bring it in soon. You can polish it in the studio very soon.
I will, because I can't take it home. Matt gets to keep all of them on his wall of fame at home.
Bedside cabinet. Next to the picture of you.
There you go. It's all brought to you with thatleisureshop.com. So let's start off this podcast with what's new in the shop.
Lots of things arriving for the season. It's been exciting. We've got this great new product there. Have you heard of the Sea Gear sand-free mat?
The sand-free mat. No, my wife does call me a sand magnet when we are on the beach. Has it got anything to do with that?
It could be. So, you know, when you put a mat on the beach, what do the children and the dogs do immediately? They run across it, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, these mats, you sprinkle dry sand on them and it just disappears through the mat. It's incredible. It's really clever technology. There's been lots of them around over the years, but these are the original sand-free mat. They were invented in Australia for the military. So did you know that helicopters, when they land on sand in the desert or anywhere that's sandy, they get sand into the engines and it kills the helicopter. They crash. And there were hundreds of helicopters getting these sand out disasters. So the military pegged out these mats on top of each other or next to each other so the helicopters could land and there would be no sand coming up from the ground into the helicopter. And so this company have taken this product and they're selling them into the leisure market. You put them outside your camper van or on the beach.
And I understand, Matt, that they don't kill the grass.
No, that's right. So the guy we buy them from, who has imported them into the UK, local chap, he said he went on a fishing trip for 5 days and put one down on the grass inside his tent and placed on the mat a cool box. And he was there for 5 days fishing. And when he packed up to go, there was no mark on the grass except where the cool box had been, a tiny patch. Normally, you'd expect the whole patch to be brown. The grass had died. So I think campsites are going to love these mats because there's nothing more annoying when you leave a campsite for a campsite owner. You've got all these brown patches where people have been pitched out for a week, and they've killed the grass. It's not very welcoming for the next family. So I think these are a game changer for campsites, and they're not expensive either. So yeah, go and check them out on thatleisureshop.com. We've got them in stock, a range of colours, orange of course.
Of course.
And we've got blue or green and tan, so there's a whole variety there. We're taking them to the shows and we're demonstrating them with play sand, and they are really clever. Really, I love them.
And they're called the sand mat.
Sand-free mat, yeah, from Sea Gear.
Sand-free mat, okay? Remember when you look it up. Quick story about my late father-in-law, God bless him. Fantastic swimmer, but very fussy. And I remember being on a beach in Spain with my son, who's now 17 but was 2 at the time. And you know what kids are like when they get on the beach. First of all, they everything comes off and they're running up and down and having a great old time. And my father-in-law, very fussy, gets his towel and puts it down and makes sure the corners are all down and it's smooth, and he's smoothing it out. And I'm thinking, oh God, just hurry up and get in the water. And he's doing it and he puts it out, and as he does it, he walks away, and my 2-year-old son comes up, squats in the middle and has a pee. There you go. Laugh. I nearly passed the drinks around.
And are you still wearing your father-in-law's shirt today?
I am.
Is that one of his? Yeah. He raided his wardrobe, honestly. Classic story. Anyway, I'm sure he's grateful to you.
Let's delve into the news right now then, shall we, Matt? The Downs, up around Bristol, we've got quite a lot of vanlifers, not people who are just doing it as a hobby, but really are living in their vans. And the Downs in the middle of Bristol are a large green space and open to the public. They've been in the news. Why is that?
Well, because they're being told they've got to move on. So the Green councillor, local councillor, Paula O'Rourke, has told them they're going to have to move. So she's trying to get them moved away on the grounds that they've got gas bottles there, which are considered a danger to life. So there are a number of gas bottles. There's pictures of them outside of a caravan, and she's trying to get them moved on.
Well, hang on a second, gas bottle. Everybody's got a barbecue who's got a gas bottle, haven't they? So you have rows of terraced houses with barbecues at every house or every other house, and they've got gas bottles, and they're not considered a danger to life,
exactly.
are they?
No, they're certainly not a danger to life, and I have to be honest, I think they're barking up the wrong tree with this. I think the danger would be if people were smoking around the gas bottles and the gas bottles were leaking. That would be the danger. Caller's gas distribution centre is not, there's risks there, sure, but it doesn't blow up. So I think there's an underlying issue here. I did approach the Green Party and Paula O'Rourke specifically and asked her to engage with me on this topic, and I've not had a reply, sadly. So, Paula, if you're listening, we really would love to talk to you about this and have a conversation about why do these van lifers need to move on? And what's going to be the knock-on effect of this? Where are they going to live? What is the real issue? I honestly don't think gas bottles placed outside of a caravan or motorhome are a reason and a risk and why they should move on.
Well, there's either a law saying you can't park your van on the downs in Bristol, or you can't live permanently in it, or you can't have a gas bottle outside of it. It's a law. But if it's not a law, it's an excuse, and health and safety is used as an excuse many times. I remember doing lots of interviews on the radio, and they'd say health and safety. And I'd say, exactly which law is that then? And of course, they were making it up as they went along.
Yeah.
So, they're either breaking the law or they're not. No, I'm not particularly in favour of them doing what they're doing or against it. But if the councils have the powers to move them on, just move them on using existing laws. Don't make something up.
No, well, I think this is what's trying to happen at the moment. So maybe you live in a van through choice, or maybe not through choice. We'd love to hear from you. Of course, this is a national story. We're focusing on the Downs in Bristol, where there are lots of van lifers living, and they have been for over 10 years now, haven't they?
Yes, a long time. Yep.
Why is it suddenly an issue? Are you one of them? We've tried to find people that live there, but it's hard to find people and have them willing to come and talk to us. We have had people approach us that were in Exmouth as well. And we've gone back to them, but we're unable to engage with them again. So if you're living in your van in a city somewhere and you're being told you need to move on, will you talk to us? And if you're on a council somewhere in the country and you've got a group of van lifers living in your city and you want them to move on, will you talk to us? Why? Why can't they live there? And where should they go? This is a lifestyle that many people are choosing to have. Some are not choosing, it's circumstance, but this is a growing lifestyle. This is a growing group of people. It's a growing community nationally, and we need to embrace it and understand what's going on here.
And we have to distinguish here between the travelling community, which culturally have lived in caravans and travelled around the country, and these van lifers who aren't travellers but are living in vans instead of houses. It's a new category of van lifer, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the travelling communities have rules in which they live within, don't they? They have areas of land dedicated to them where they can build their community and they can reside. And van lifers can sort of stay anywhere really, and they just park at the side of the road. I guess the only rules they have to comply with is that the vehicle they're in is taxed and MOT'd. What's the underlying story here? Do you reckon we can get to the bottom of it? Is it about money? Is it about council tax not being paid?
We'll have to find out, and we will find out for you. Also with Exmouth Lorry Park, we've mentioned this in a couple of previous podcasts. An old lorry park in Exmouth was being refurbished, and some van lifers moved in to live in their vans, weren't doing anybody any harm, and they've been asked now to move on. Elliot got in touch with us, so we've been trying to track you down, Elliot, so we can do that interview with you. We are keen to have you on the podcast, so please get in touch.
Yeah, Elliot's a keen listener. So, yeah, we would love to hear back from you, Elliot.
It is the Motorhome Map podcast brought to you with thatleisureshop.com. Today, Ford Future Vehicles is what we're concentrating on in the main part of the podcast. And you've been talking to somebody, Matt.
Yeah, we've had now a good friend of the podcast, Ryan Bowdidge, has been in the studio. Ryan is head of leisure vehicles for Ford Pro across Europe. So he's the guy who's in charge of the Ford chassis that get given or sold to the motorhome converters to make a motorhome on. And as an industry, we've seen a huge growth in the number of Ford badges on the fronts of our motorhomes. And I asked Ryan a little bit more about that. And it's great to have him on the podcast, because the relationship between Ford and a motorhome owner is normally is interrupted by the manufacturer. Ford are very much a B2B, a business-to-business operation in this sector. So for Ryan almost to put his head above the parapet and come and engage with us as a consumer podcast, I think was a real privilege. So I asked Ryan more about Ford's future plans for the leisure sector, and particularly motorhomes. Well, Ryan, it's great to have you with us again. Thank you so much for coming down, this time to the studio. Thank you very much. Look, we first met at Campervan Campout for the whole episode on electric campervans in the future. Today I wanted to pick your brain a bit more on the future of Ford, because Ford are growing in our marketplace at a significant rate. We're seeing more Ford badges on the fronts of our motorhomes that we buy, particularly the coach-built ones. So it'd be great just to delve into your kind of crystal ball. I get told off for saying that. And just tell us a bit more about Ford's future. What's great, though, as a listener, we're very much a consumer podcast. Ryan is a very much behind-the-scenes kind of guy. Can I call you that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely fair. So my typical day job involves working with the converters in this space, right? So the large leisure converters, not only in the UK but all around Europe. So household names such as Trigano, the Erwinheimer Group, Rapido, and in the UK, Swift, Bailey, Auto Trail, obviously part of the Trigano Group. But my day job is working with them, and not necessarily with the end customer, because the end customer is the converter's customer.
Well, that's right. And there's normally, between us, the consumer, and you, Ford, there's a motorhome manufacturer in the way, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really good to get your voice talking to us directly, sort of bypassing the motorhome manufacturers and just getting an insight into what are we in for from Ford, because, as I say already, we're going to see more and more Ford product in the market. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So let's just start with the Transit Custom. Just define that for us. What is that van? Are you prepared to compare it to another product?
Yeah, if I have to. I'll be careful which one I choose, maybe. But and Transit Custom is really exciting for us because we're launching an all-new one imminently. But for the viewers out there, the audience out there, Transit Custom, you can think of it as what we call a 1-ton size vehicle. So it's typically the smaller sized van, which other OEMs out there, such as the Volkswagen Transporter.
You said it.
Yeah, I know.
You swore. So it's typically a pop-top camper van, isn't it?
Yeah, pop-top camper van is typically what you'll see that size vehicle be converted into.
Yeah, so we've got the Transit Custom, so we'll talk about that some more. And then we've got the Transit itself, which is what our coach-built motorhomes are built on. So tell me then, what's coming new what are we in store with the Transit Custom?
Yeah, so Transit Custom launching end of this year, end of 2023, basically an all-new product. So we've had our existing Transit Custom out there for about 10 years now. It's done fantastically well, and it was the time to basically launch an all-new product in that segment. So it's coming shortly, but it's also really exciting for me specifically as a camper donor type product as well.
And what's new about it?
So everything, but to just drill down into a few specifics. So the fact that it's designed, developed from the ground up, new vehicle architecture. So things like it's lowered to the ground. Simple things. It's lowered to the ground, makes it easier to get in and out of. We've cleaned up the interior cab space of the vehicle at the front. So, for example, it comes with standard features such as electronic parking brakes. And also it's got a different shifter mechanism, and all of that stuff means that you clear up that space in the cab so as you can walk across, walk rearwards in the vehicle, move around in the cab a lot easier, which is great specifically for a camper product. As well as that, it comes with things like a 13-inch touchscreen infotainment system. So bringing it much more in line with what you'd see in sort of high-end passenger vehicles today, right? So we're all getting used to, in our cars, big screen technology, shall I say? And now you're going to be seeing that also in the commercial vehicles. As well as that, what's really exciting, I think, specifically for the leisure industry, is that the way we're thinking about the camper industry, and that we have internally at Ford now what we call a camper donor product. So before, I think it's fair to say that camper conversions could have been a little bit of an afterthought. So for sure we were supplying vans or combis to the converters, but there was a lot of potential inefficiencies in doing that. One of the things that we did as part of this development is go around and have a look in the converters' skips to see what parts they were throwing away. Nobody wants to throw away parts, right? Really inefficient, bad for the environment, bad for your business. So we said, okay, let's learn from that and let's make a more bespoke donor product for this industry.
So what does that mean? Rotating seats, trim removed from the back?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so all of kind of those essentials you want to get as a bodybuilder, as a converter. So absolutely, swivel seats, passenger and driver must have for your camper. Removed trims in the back is an option. So if you're going to do what I think of as like a California kitchen layout down one side of the vehicle, of course you don't need any vehicle trims down that side, right? You're going to take those out and throw those away. So you can get that in the base vehicle. It's just a few little examples.
So does the new customer then have one sliding door?
So you've got an option. So you've got an option as to whether you want one sliding door or dual sliding doors. Of course, depending on what layout you do in your vehicle. But there's lots of different configurations that you can get. So I'm hoping we're going to see a lot of variety out there in terms of.
So will it be? Is the option for a near side sliding door in the UK? So left hand side.
In the UK, we always, if we have a single side load door, as we call it, we always make sure that that's on the curb side of the vehicle.
Unlike VW.
Yeah, unlike VW, and that's a bit of a Ford philosophy. We've got I would say, an extra emphasis on customer safety.
Right.
And so the thing for us is that we don't want our customers in the rear potentially having to step out into
the road.
So
and rear doors, they're going to be. Is it an option for split barn doors or an over?
Yeah, so we've gone predominantly with a tailgate style on the camper donor because that seems to be the most popular conversion type out there. I think, again, if we look at the product today, there is products with barn doors, and they're the ones that have typically been converted from a van-based product.
Yeah.
But the feedback I get from converters, from the customers, is tailgate is what they're after.
Now, I'm only going to touch on this. I'm not going to ask you to talk about it, but the good news for Volkswagen is that their new Transporter is a Ford Transit, isn't it?
So,
I didn't warn you I was going to mention.
No, I know. Yeah, no. This is an interesting subject, shall we say, and one I'll try to avoid getting into hot water with. But it's fair to say that Ford and VW have been, announced. We've entered into an alliance. The next generation 1-ton cargo van, as we've called it in the press for VW, will be based on a Ford architecture. So we're really excited about that alliance, and I'm sure there'll be lots of information coming from VW on that.
It's interesting because the consensus here is that the T6, you bought one now, so pure VW will go up in value because it's the last thoroughbred Volkswagen. So for those who are VW purists, they'll want the T6 because they don't want a Ford. But it's one to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. And it's you can't deny the history that Volkswagen have got in this camper space, right? They've got many years of fantastic products out there. So it's we're always looking at the competition, seeing what they do, seeing how we can do better. And of course in the world of campers, we'd be looking at someone like VW.
Yeah, of course. So the Transit Custom then is the new one is diesel, but there's other versions coming as well. We've got diesel, Fev and Bev. It sounds like a girl band.
Yeah, absolutely. So
talk us through the three options and when are they happening? Yeah,
so of course we've got we've got a diesel version, and say that's there's new capability with that as well. So for example, we've got a diesel all-wheel drive, which is interesting. So if you want
for a camper van.
If you want it as a camper van, absolutely.
Right,
so if you're doing a bit of off-roading in your camper, that could be a good option for you. But as well as that, in the not too distant future, early next year, we'll be looking at the BEV, which is the fully electric.
Battery electric
vehicle. And then we've got the PHEV, which
plug-in hybrid.
The plug-in hybrid electric vehicle as well. So we've got a full range of powertrain options out there.
So it's interesting that you've done a van on a PHEV, so the plug-in, the hybrid. We know about these rules. In 2030, all vehicles have to be minimum able to travel a distance, which is, I think that the industry accepted length is 80 miles.
Yeah.
the customer's not quite there though, is it? Because the FEV does how many? 30 miles on electric?
Yes, I think at the minute they're still working through their official calculations, should we say? But I think it will be it should be in excess of 30 miles fully electric. So the system used in the new Transit Custom PHEV is the same as what we have in our Cougars today.
Right.
So if you're familiar with a Cougar.
So that's
PHEV.
petrol then, petrol and electric.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've gone back in time. We've gone back to petrol vans.
Yeah, it's one way to look at it. Yeah, but back in time to one extent, but of course hybrid with hybrid technology, right? So cutting edge hybrid technologies that we'll be familiar with from passenger vehicles, which is great. And just to say, so I drive around in a Cougar hybrid today. My journey to work is about 10 miles. 10 miles there, 10 miles back, so I can do all of that electric, which is something you could consider in.
So the market then for the Transit Custom as a camper van, a FEV is going to be someone who lives in the city in a low emission zone. This is going to be exempt from a penalty for driving it in. Is that the market you're aiming this at?
Yeah, well, the legislation I think changes all the time. So as to whether it be exempt tomorrow, who knows? But I think for me the plug-in hybrid is a great balance, right? Because if you're someone who wants to do longer distance journeys, you've got that capability through using your petrol side of things. But if you want to be able to do a number of miles fully electric, say because you might be using this as your daily commuter, as an example, like I do with my Cougar, then you can absolutely do that. And of course, if there's areas that are restricting vehicles to be zero emissions only, then there's of course then the potential that you could use the plug-in hybrid for that as well.
And hybrid's a great stepping stone, isn't it? We've got a hybrid car. It's a Toyota Yaris. It's our second one, and that's our kind of runaround car.
Yeah.
And it, less than a year ago, I was pretty anti-EV. I have to say, where we live is very remote. Having a charging point at home is very difficult. I don't drive anywhere near an electric charging point. Well, I didn't. I do now, oddly. But I'm a bit of a convert. I love a hybrid, and I love watching that monitor on the screen of when I'm on battery, and it makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. Yeah. And then the little diesel engine kicks in. Petrol engine kicks in. It's oh no, slow down. So it's educating me on how much energy I'm using, how I'm driving, and I actually think a hybrid car is a really good educator and a great transitional step to convert someone like me, who's a bit of a petrol head. And I love my diesel motorhome, but actually I can see there is a future for EV in our little sector. And it's been a good educator for me. So let's go to transit. So this is the 2-ton van, you call it, don't you?
Yeah.
This is what we see motorhome, coach-built motorhomes being built on. What's the future for transit?
Transit, we've got not only our chassis that we provide into the industry for motorhome conversion, but there's also a growing market of panel van conversions out there, so some more camper van, but in that bigger size. So today already we have e-transit available. There's plenty out there at the minute, and in fact just as recently as last week there was an Asda supermarket delivery vehicle around the corner from me dropping off groceries with its e-transit unit, so that was great to see. I think it's fair to say that in terms of the leisure segment, e-transit is probably going to be something that takes a bit of time to gain traction. So we are seeing now that there's...
you mean generally or in our market?
So in the leisure market. So e-transit's great in terms of, things like last mile delivery. So those supermarket guys, right? Again,
as you'd say, they're carrying apples and pears.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, they can still be quite heavily loaded, but the thing is that they do relatively low mileage, right? So you see the things going around all the time. You think they do big miles, but they don't. They stay to quite a small area, and they might only do 50 miles in a day. And e-transit's absolutely perfect.
And what the range of an e-transit is? 130 miles?
Yeah. So we quote our WLTP figures, but WLTP I think is about 190. But it's fair to say then when you load that up with a camper conversion, which is a lot of weight, right? You're putting a lot of weight in the back of the vehicle. You basically run it fully loaded. The benchmark I like to use there is Winnebago. Out in America, who did a e-transit conversion, and I think they was typically seeing something about 130 miles,
which is not realistic. Not really, is it, for a motorhome owner?
It'll be very niche, right? Again, of course, all depends on what you're doing with your motorhome. But I'm willing to admit that it'll be quite a niche thing in this segment for a period of time.
But the future's exciting for e-transit in our market because a manufacturer has already converted one. So Börsner launched in Germany last year in 2022.
Yeah.
They brought it to the UK this year. I mean, apparently they had to take all the batteries out when they converted it because they were paranoid about something blowing up.
Yeah.
That's just not viable, though, is it?
Well, and this is the thing about e-transit being out there today is it's giving the converters the opportunity to learn, which is really important because, as you know, we know this is coming, we know it's happening, but they can't all learn the tales here all at the last minute. So they're buying the vehicles now, they're performing conversions on them, their engineers are gaining the knowledge that they need to gain in terms of what's different versus a diesel, and then they'll take that forwards as they start to produce these more widely. So. Yeah, I think again it's relatively niche at the minute. We'll see a handful of prototypes out there for a time being. We might see a few more than that in a few years. Let's see and hope. But then
I know we will.
Yeah, and then really for me, I think the big stepping stone will be what comes maybe more into the future.
So very close to home, Bailey of Bristol have had an e-transit and have converted it, haven't they, into a camper van. In fact, we've just seen it launch in the press. It's a prototype, so you can't actually buy it. But they've had it, and it's back with you at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had effectively 10 e-transit prototypes that we handed out to a number of converters. And that was all about getting them on board with the process, helping them to understand how to convert on an e-transit, and also then getting feedback back to Ford on that. So Bailey was selected as one of those partners. We were keen to partner with someone in the leisure industry. They have done an e-transit panel van conversion, which is great. We've had that back at Dunton just recently. We've had the team poring over it. We had a great presentation from the Bailey team. They'd put a lot of thought into the conversion, specifically around things such as sustainability, because again, that's really important part of the e-story, should we say? It's not just about the vehicle, but it's about everything else and making sure it's sustainable and good for the planet. But it's a prototype. But again, it's all about them learning how to convert on an e-donor as opposed to something else. So as again, in the future, when this becomes more prevalent, they've got that capability, that knowledge there. They're ready to go. As well as that, it's about putting out a message to the industry, right? That this is coming. Here it is. Bailey have done the work to get the learnings here, but now it's up to everyone else to do their piece as well.
And is it fair to say they're the first UK manufacturer to build a camper van on an e-transit?
Yeah, absolutely. They're the first in the UK, as you mentioned already. We had the one from Börsner, which we saw last year. But yeah, Bailey first UK homegrown e-transit camper van conversion.
Fantastic. And they are taking it to the NEC show, aren't they, as a prototype to say we're embracing this change. It's coming. Come and have a look.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be at the NEC, so we're hoping to get lots of engagement again, and to get the potential end customer's viewpoint on this. Right? Does it work for them? What doesn't work? What do we take away from that? And how do we then roll that into a future product?
So that's the NEC show in October this year. So we'll stay tuned and we'll be looking out for that definitely. Ryan, you mentioned that this camper van conversion from Bailey is at your base in Dunton. And you've invited us to come and have a go in it and come and see it. Is that okay? Can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. As long as you don't mind the drive and can suffer the M25 round to our home in Dunton in Essex. But yeah, would absolutely love to have you there. We'll show you around the vehicle. We'll show you a little bit of what Dunton has to offer, and we'll see if we can get you a drive around the test track as well.
Yeah, that would be brilliant. Well, let's do that, and we'll see if we can get an appointment in your diary to do that next week. For you, Ryan, the future is really a massive learning curve, isn't it? We talk about a J curve, so this, or bell curve, this kind of initial early adopters taking the product, and then it becomes mass market.
Yep.
But it's all very unknown for you as a manufacturer, and you're on this real massive journey. It's an exciting time to be alive, isn't it? But what is Ford's strategy as we go into the next decade and next 30 years? Can you share a bit about that?
Yeah, so I mean, within the leisure industry, I think Ford has been growing now for a number of years. I mean, historically, we've been, I think, in about 7th position as an OEM within the industry. Of course, Fiat #1 dominating for many, many years, something like 60 or 70% market share.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah, quite possibly. And of course, within the 2-ton segment, that is. But of course, times have changed for various reasons, supply constraints, etc. But Ford are, serious about getting into the leisure industry. We've got great products out there now. We've got great partnerships with converters all around Europe and, in the UK as well, of course.
And I know you've introduced this thing you call an anchor customer. What's that?
Yeah, so for us, the key thing is that as we move forward with the development of new products, we want to, as early as possible, get the feedback from our converters, from our customers, to make sure we're on the right track. And the great thing is that for some of our future products, we've already been working with experts in the leisure industry, again, to make sure what we're doing is suitable for leisure specifically, as well as other industries. Get their feedback now, whilst we can still do something in the product development cycle. Take the feedback on board and make changes where needed.
And your view of the world is European wide, isn't it? It's not just the UK. You're responsible for leisure vehicles from Ford across the whole of Europe.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I've got colleagues and customers that I work with in France, in Germany, in Italy, Spain. So it's focused around 4 or 5 key markets in Europe where we operate, but very much European based.
Well, we love the fact that you're here in Britain, flying our flag across Europe. That's fantastic. Now, the future we're very much feels a little bit like we're being railroaded into a world of electric vehicles. Can I say that? The UK government certainly is almost written off, it seems, every other source of power. And we are being a little bit forced into this EV corner, I feel. And I know lots of our listeners agree with me. Mark in Bristol, so local to us, asks a great question. I'll read it to you. Maybe you can come back to us on it. He says, the EV is a good concept. Once it's on the road, how are the manufacturers going to offset the building of these vehicles? They're going to need a good bank of batteries, etc., which creates more harm long-term to the environment. They have to be mined and manufactured, and then once used, cannot be recycled. Maybe the manufacturers should look to hydrogen technology like JCB. Yeah. What's Ford's kind of view on hydrogen? We know battery technology is evolving from lithium. We know there's sodium technology coming, but where are Ford in all of that future?
Yeah, so it's a timely question, because it was just this week that that Ford announced a study on hydrogen fuel cell technology. So that's working with the Advanced Propulsion Centre. And I think the point being here is that all our eggs are not in one EV-sized basket, right?
Okay.
We know there's different options out there for future propulsion. EV is one of those. Hydrogen fuel cells is another, and there's others beside that as well. And we're keeping our minds open, right? So that's why we're doing the study, to see the benefits, to see if it makes sense, and to see if that's something that we put into more wider production going forwards.
And of course, there's all about infrastructure as well, which is a whole, you have no control or influence, not directly over that, but Ford starts investing hugely in hydrogen, then the hydrogen infrastructure to dispense that fuel will start to grow, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it's not just hinged on what Ford does, but more what the wider automotive sector does. So, again, I think it's fair to say other OEMs again are looking at various technologies. Some are more into perhaps hydrogen-based solutions, others EV. There's a range there. So, be interesting to see what the future holds.
And are Ford looking at synthetic fuel, so e-fuel as it's often referred to?
Yeah, so again, that's another interesting one, because just relatively recently we announced our working with a very famous F1 team called Red Bull. F1 are very much looking into the future of sustainable fuels. And again, that's another example of where Ford are partnering to get engineering information, learnings from another segment, motorsport, that can then potentially flow back into more mainstream products.
Yeah. Ryan, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you here with us in our little corner of North Somerset. Thank you for visiting us, and an even bigger thanks to giving us your view of the world. So we don't really hear from Ford because, as we said earlier, there's normally a motorhome manufacturer in the way between you, the chassis manufacturer and us, the consumer. So to hear directly from you has been an absolute honour. So thank you so much. Your invitation to go and drive this new Bailey e-Transit, we are going to take you up on that. We're going to come up and see you, and we look forward to driving that around the test track. Ryan, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the invitation, and look forward to seeing you at Dunton.
Ryan, thank you for coming in the studio. It's been really good to have you with us. What a great privilege that was.
Fantastic, really great interview. And remember, you can see it on our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, and stay tuned for this future episode. I'm really excited about it. The e-Transit is definitely here to stay, and we are undoubtedly going to see it in the motorhome world. So you will get a sneak preview of it with us. So we're very excited to go and find out more about that.
Electricity, we are the power behind it. Ta-da! Thank you very much.
Really? Ring the bell.
Ding, ding. It's the Motorhome podcast, brought to you with thatleisureshop.com with me, Keith Gooden.
And I'm Motorhome Matt.
My favourite part of every podcast, our audience Q&A, where you get in touch with us and hopefully we give you the answers that you're seeking. Dave got in touch.
Hi Matt and Keith, well done on the podcasts. Dave here from just down the road in Taunton. And the question relates to external whale water port adapters. Just buying an Adamo 75/4 DL, first van that I'll have used with a whale adapter. Don't understand why Bailey need to have the whale adapter, so if you happen to know the answer to that, it would just be interesting. But more importantly, with a whale adapter, can you actually get an adapter to attach that to a blue food grade water hose and just fill it normally from a tap, as there seems quite a bit of confusion around this. Secondly, there's talk of using an onboard pump activated by the control panel in the Adamo to onboard water. And my question is, why? And do you have to use that pump? Because it would be a lot easier just to fill it like normal with a normal hose, and when the water pours out the hole, stop filling. Grateful for views and advice. Cheers.
So, Matt, that one puts you on the spot. Whales and pumps.
It does. I had actually the pleasure of meeting Dave. Him and his wife came up to the shop, and I was in the shop serving, and it was my turn on the rota. And Dave, it was lovely to meet you and your wife, and she did confess, Matt, he's obsessed with you. Apparently he's a big fan. So, Dave, thanks for your question. Really appreciate it. We actually took the question to Bailey. And I'm pleased to tell you, Dave, that one of the directors at Bailey has helped us answer the question. I went through the question and thought, yes, I know the answer to this, but I thought I'm just going to double check with Bailey on their view as well. So, Simon, thank you ever so much for answering this and helping me come back to Dave with an answer. So, firstly, why do Bailey use this whale fitting? My view would be that Bailey's heritage is in caravans, and these have always been prolific in caravans, and they've been building caravans for 40 odd years. So I think that's why they use this fitting on the water system, because it's easy for them to do that. European manufacturers tend to have a hole with a cap on that you just poke the hose in, and the hose falls out and water goes everywhere. This does stop you doing that. To fill it from a tap, you can do that. The Adamo does come, Bailey confirmed that it does come with the whale Aquasource kit. It's the little square whale connector that goes into the wall of the motorhome, and then a hose and a screw fixing that goes on the tap. So you can fill it from a tap, use it with food grade hose that comes with the motorhome. If you lose that or it gets stolen, you can buy them. We sell them at That Leisure Shop as well. For people particularly who bought a caravan that hasn't come with that little fixing kit. Why is there an external pump? It means that you could draw water out of, say, an aqua roll. So again, back to the caravan heritage. So some kind of water container, you could suck water out of that into the motorhome tank. So if you're wild camping, you're off grid, and you want to go and get water and bring it to the motorhome, you can, and you can then suck that water from that container into the motorhome. Now, it doesn't come with that external pump. That is something you would have to buy. Again, we sell them in the shop, and it plugs into your well adapter. So that's why they have that. If you want to fill it without using this well attachment, you can. You would would just get the hose from the tap and feed it straight into the water tank. If you open under the lounge area, you'll find the water tank, unscrew the top and pop the hose in the top, and you could fill it that way. Hope that answers the question, Dave.
There you go, Dave. Thanks very much for the question. Neil Westlake Guy says, we're looking to buy our first camper van, 2 adults, 2 Cocker Spaniels, for both short and long trips in the UK, Ireland and Europe. What advice do you have for manufacturers and converters? We don't want to make a bed each night. We love to walk and cycle on and off grid and explore lakes, coasts, forests and peaks.
Wow, I'm coming with you. Sounds great, Neil. When are you going? I would suggest if you don't want to make a bed up, then definitely look at a motorhome with a fixed bed. That's likely to give you a garage where you could put the bikes or a bike rack on the back if you're prepared to put them on the back of the motorhome. In terms of the dogs, I would definitely be looking at a motorhome with a bigger lounge area, giving room for the dogs to sprawl out, lie down, go to bed, and think about seatbelt numbers as well. So if there's 4 of you, basically, you possibly need 4 seatbelts so the dogs can be clipped in and therefore comply with the rules around travelling with dogs. You can, however, buy a seatbelt attachment which has a carabiner on. So you could clip that around your seatbelt in the front and attach the dog to that. So if you're buying a motorhome with only 2 seatbelts, that could work as well.
Hope that has been a help to you, Neil. Kevin Howes in Pulborough and says, hi Matt, I've just seen the podcast about payload and have a question relating to my Chasson 79EB. We've just bought it and thought we'd get it weighed empty. Its mass in running order is 3,150 kilograms. On a weigh bridge with me, the wife, the dog and half a tank of diesel, no water in, it weighs on a weigh bridge at 3,225 kilograms. It's got lots of items fitted as non-standard. We also want to take electric bikes. They're 32 kilograms each, food and clothes. So we thought about fitting a tow bar. Fiat VIN plate states 3,500 kilograms and 6,250 kilograms. But the Chausson plate only states 3,500 kilograms and 3,500 kilograms. No train weight. I have a C1 entitlement on my licence, but my son doesn't. He wants to drive the motorhome. Do I need a VOSA inspection? I don't know what to do. Please advise. Now, that is a very technical question, Matt.
It is. So basically, he's got a very limited payload. So the difference between what the motorhome weighs empty, almost empty, and how much he can carry. So the first thing you've done there, Kevin, is you weighed yourself, your wife and the dog. A net weight, the curb weight or the mass in running order, would normally only include a full tank of diesel, no water, and the driver, or an allocation for the driver. So you've overweighed it, you've overloaded it for the point of trying to find the net payload. But what you're doing is very sensible. So you've discovered that it's got a payload of around 275 kilos, and you're working out that that's just not enough. Now, you've mentioned about the VIN plate being 3.5 and 6,250 from Fiat. That is what it is. Why the Chausson one is 3.5, I don't know. That could be an error, but they won't have taken away the train weight. So it could take a tow bar. Remember, that carries a weight, and you could tow the wife and the dog or the bikes and stuff, more the point. So that's one solution. But then you do have to remember that your son can only tow a train weight of 3.5 tons. So he would have to take a C1 license if you're going to upplate it, or you're going to have to buy a different type of motorhome. This is such a massive topic, isn't it? We keep coming back to it. Payloads and motorhomes are a real issue. And they're often insufficient for, most motorhomes are often travelling down the road overweight. We are actually going to do an episode with the specialists, SVTech. They've asked to come on the podcast, and we're talking to them about doing an episode with them in the future. So stay tuned for that. But I would definitely consider getting in touch with them before you get in touch with VOSA. They would be able to advise you on what you could do to potentially upplate the motorhome. But of course, at the moment, that would mean your son can't drive it. But It's also worth noting that Parliament are due to review this C1 category and revoke it potentially. Department for Transport are putting a case together. It's due to go to Parliament this year. We're trying to find out if it's been heard yet. We've not any news yet, but potentially that would mean that we would go back to the old rules that we could all drive up to 7.5 tons as soon as we've passed our test.
And yeah, with this government's time running out, we have to have a general election by November 2024. Don't hold your breath for this sort of legislation to be changed. They might drop it. What about his son just taking the test?
Well, he could, yeah, that's going to cost £1,000 and cost him a week of his life. Yeah, probably.
£1,000?
Yeah, that's what it cost. I mean, you can do it for lower costs than that. One of our family did it for, I think it was about £500. But she went and coordinated all the bits of the test together so she could drive a horse box. But I would hang on. You say we're going to run out of time. The thing is, the towing rules changed so that people could get to drive an HGV with less resistance. There's already a rule that means if your vehicle is fully electric, you can drive it at 4.25 tons. This is not widely reported. We were talking about this on a previous episode, and people have commented, I didn't know that. So, people say, well, with a battery at 3.5 tons, it's going to be overweight. No, if it's all electric, it can be 4,250. That's already a government ruling. So I think they are highly likely to revoke this, and it will just mean that people can get in a 7.5 ton lorry and become a delivery driver without having to take a test. And with a shortage of lorry drivers, that's the agenda.
Yeah, you make a good point. So fingers crossed. Thanks, Kevin, very much for that question. People want to get in touch with us. They want to see us on YouTube. What do they need to do, Matt?
Just easily search Motorhome Matt on the internet and you'll find us on YouTube. You'll find all the podcast episodes on our website at motorhomematt.co.uk, and you'll find us on Instagram, Facebook and TikTok as Motorhome Matt as well.